Welcome to another edition of Revolutionary Theatre. I am your host, Covington Fogwater, coming to you live from Cherry Road, London. In tonight's episode, Oops, We Did It Again, we will be examining a little skirmish we Brits call the Colonial Uprising, and not just how it was a victory for a scrappy band of freedom fighters known as the Patriots, but also how it was a humiliating defeat for our great British forces. Throughout the 18th century, the British Army was known as the world's premier fighting machine. We were better armed, larger in number, and more experienced. For goodness sakes, how many times have we defeated the bloody French? Obviously, a bunch of farmers and shopkeepers aren't going to defeat our great British forces. Or could they? Faced with revolutionary weapons and fighting tactics employed by the Patriot militia, our powerful British Army, shackled by tradition, failed to adopt new weapons, did not adapt to the military fighting strategy, and relied heavily on mercenary support in a series of blunders. Why did such an experienced fighting machine fail to react? Let's take a look, shall we? Travel back with me to June 1st, 1776, if you will. Here, Captain Patrick Ferguson of the British Army is discussing rifles versus muskets and linear fighting versus bush tactics. Let's take a look, shall we? You see, sirs, many people think that linear fighting is crazy. Two armies face each other less than 100 yards away, three ranks deep in tight formation. As they shoot, they move closer, one force often pushing the other from the field with a bayonet charge. Soldiers simply present their arms towards the enemy, firing as fast as they can. This kind of firepower is hard to achieve unless in open terrain and in open formation. Patriot soldiers use bush tactics and come armed with whatever weapons they own. Muskets, turkey guns, pistols, and even poles. But our deadliest foe, by far, is the Patriot rifleman. Allow me to read you a personal letter from Richard Henry Lee about what our soldiers faced against the Patriot riflemen. Riflemen, for their number, make the most formidable light infantry in the world. The 6 frontier countries of Virginia can produce 6,000 of these men with their amazing hardihood, their method of living so long in the woods, and the dexterity to which they've arrived in the use of the rifle gun. As a result of defending their homes against Indian attacks, there is not one of these men who would miss a shot at an orange from more than 200 yards. Every shot is fatal. When our soldiers face Patriot riflemen in the brush, we British lose an astounding 74% of the battles. This is why I bring to you today a weapon of my own invention, which will astonish all beholders, the Ferguson rifle. As you can see from my patent application, the remarkable feature of this weapon is the unique breech loading mechanism of the Ferguson rifle. The breech mechanism allows the Ferguson rifle to be loaded with one movement, making it faster load, safer, and fire with greater accuracy. Allow me to demonstrate. As you can see, I have fired 6 shots within just 1 minute. Our soldiers could easily reload while on the run or laying flat on the ground, allowing us to counter the bush fighting tactics of the Patriot militia. The demonstration of the Ferguson rifle was a great success. 300 rifles were ordered, and Captain Ferguson was given a patent on December 2nd, 1776. But instead of giving every British soldier a more accurate rifle, the British commander, General Sir William Howe, ordered Ferguson to the Battle of Brandywine with just 20 riflemen. The Ferguson rifle itself performed well, but Ferguson was injured in the fighting, allowing General Howe to have all of the rifles be put away in a cellar in New York. Some historians believe that this colossal mistake was not by accident. Rumors have it that General Howe was sympathetic to the Patriot cause and knew this rifle might defeat them. No more rifles were produced, and the Ferguson rifle was never used again. In one of the saddest ironies of the war in 1780, Ferguson led 1,000 loyalists armed with muskets against 950 Patriot riflemen at the Battle of Kings Mountain. Ferguson was tragically killed with 8 shots from a Patriot rifle, the same kind of weapon he had invented for the British. Kings Mountain stands today as one of the world's premier examples of the superiority of rifles and bush tactics over muskets and linear fighting. But the Ferguson rifle and linear fighting weren't the only blunders we made during the war. Oh no, when we bollocksed it up right. In reaction to the success of the Patriot militia, British command decided to import Hessians. Hessians have been a staple of the British Army throughout the 18th century. Right, good idea then. Or was it? Journey back with me to a Hessian encampment and judge for yourself. I don't know why I'm here. I was torn from my home and handed over to the British government by Germany to wage a war against the people I know nothing about. We're always lumbering in the rear. Our caps weigh almost as much as the whole equipment of a British infantry soldier. In my last unit, 20 or 30 of the men were certain we were going to die and never again to see our fatherland. In the following week, half that number died. Dead of this disorder of the heart. Die in the wilderness? Gods know. I'm going to desert to the Patriots, first chance I get. And desert they did. British soldiers became easily demoralized when faced with Patriot militia, putting yet another bullet into the heart of the English war effort. We Brits, bound by tradition, relied on our tried and true military tradition without regard for their effectiveness against these so-called revolutionaries. The legacy of the success of the Patriot militia was far-reaching as citizens around the world saw that an armed militia could in fact reform an oppressive government, setting off waves of levée en masse, as the French call it, or a rising up of masses, including rebellions in France, Africa, and even Russia. For more on the legacy of the Patriot militia, let's go to Donald Stoker, Professor of Strategy and Policy at the U.S. Naval War College, live from Monterey, California. Professor Stoker, what effects do we see today from the victory of the Patriot militia over the powerful British Army?
In the United States, you see the effects in things like the Second Amendment, which guarantees our citizens' rights to bear arms and form militia, as well as the civilian control of our military. And around the world, you see the legacy of the Patriot militia even today in rebellions where citizen forces use weapons made out of whatever they can find and avoid using mercenary soldiers and employ insurgent tactics very similar to those used by the Patriot militia.
Thank you, Professor Stoker. Most citizens in European countries did not own guns and were quite powerless against a military force. Although untrained in traditional military tactics, Patriot citizens were armed and skilled at fighting in the bush. Yankee ingenuity allowed them to turn their disadvantages into fighting tactics that defeated the world's most powerful army. And indeed today, Yanks still cherish their right to bear arms and to raise a militia as their birthright to ensure protection of their freedoms, while we Brits still cling to the tradition of old. I beg your pardon, Your Majesty. One might say that the legacy of the American Revolution is not military might, but the power of seeing things in a different light. Thank you for joining me in this week's segment of Revolutionary Theatre. This is your host, Covington Frogwater, saying good night and God save the Queen.